The first Superblasts from Asics can be said to have initiated the genre of super trainers, so versatile shoes for everyday training, yet incorporating certain technologies that are used in most advanced racing shoes. In the case of Superblast, this included a lightweight, race-oriented upper and an incredibly responsive foam known from the Metaspeed Sky and Metaspeed Edge models. The shoe received fantastic reviews and can be said to have taken the market by storm. Perhaps the best evidence is that getting the first version might not be impossible, but it isn't easy. Asics decided to continue with the series and make a few changes. Is it worth changing something that worked? Here are the Asics Superblast 2. Hi, I'm Michał, an amateur runner who is deeply into running shoes. On this channel I review gear and shoes and discuss various running related topics, so if that interests you, feel free to subscribe and comment, it really helps me reach new people. Thanks! Before I get into my running impressions with the Superblasts, I must note that I bought these shoes myself and no one influenced the opinions presented here. Let's start as usual with a handful of technical details. When it comes to the upper, there's a significant change compared to the first version. In the first version we had an upper somewhat like the Metaspeeds, meaning like more race oriented and lightweight. Here it's much better in my opinion. This mesh is somewhat more fabric-like and very breathable, so especially in the summer it can be very effective. And overall it's very comfortable when you put the shoe on your foot. The heel counter is quite stiff. It's slightly reinforced in the lower part here. Additionally, this little tab makes putting the shoe on easier. Plus there's some plush padding to keep the heel in place. My heel didn't slip in these shoes, so that's a plus. The lacing is quite standard. The tongue is relatively thin with little pads on the sides to make it more comfortable against the foot. A nice feature is that it's also integrated with the upper. It holds firmly to the upper about halfway up its length, which helps keep the foot in place, so the upper gets a thumbs up from me. The midsole. There's a lot to unpack here, so bear with me. We have 45.5mm foam under the heel and 37.5mm at the front, giving us an 8mm drop. As you can see, there's a lot of foam. Notably, there are two foams here. The first foam, the top layer, quite a thick layer of FF Turbo Plus, which is more race-oriented and responsive, and the bottom is FF Blast Plus Eco. This foam is known from models like the Nova Blasts. The shoe in size 46 EU weighs 281 grams, which, considering the size of the shoe, is a good result, and I think you don't feel this weight while running, so that's a plus too. The outsole. Here we have a coverage with rubber, say about half the area, maybe less. Anyway, it's AsicsGrip rubber combined with AHAR Plus rubber, which should ensure first that we don't slip, and second that it's pretty durable, so we should get a lot of miles out of these shoes. One change compared to the predecessor, apart from the different rubber, is that the holes here in those places are smaller than in the previous version, where stones used to get stuck. As you can see, some dirt still gets trapped here, but it's a minor issue compared to the first version. How does it feel to run in these shoes? In my opinion, it feels phenomenal. The first kilometers I ran in these shoes were easy, about 10-12 kilometers. I thought to myself that, okay, they are suitable for logging miles, maybe not as much for speed work, but as it turned out, I just needed to break them in, because after about 30 kilometers in these shoes, I felt that the foam became much more friendly to me, much easier to pick up the pace, and just more enjoyable to run in. So there is a breaking in period with these shoes, which is strange, although the first version also had something like that, so it's worth knowing about it. As I said, they are very comfortable on easy runs, even though the cushioning isn't as super soft as in, for example, the Nimbus or Asics Nova Blasts. It's firmer and more responsive. Despite this, running is comfortable. I had no problems on easy runs, even on longer ones, and these shoes actually are designed for longer runs, like 20 kilometers and more. As for faster training, I had a few interval sessions at a 5-kilometer pace, even slightly faster at times, and it was possible to pick up the pace in these shoes. Of course, it didn't feel like the shoe was designed explicitly for tempo work, like, you know, Saucony Endorphin Speed, for example. But these aren't that type of shoe, but it was close in this regard, so that says a lot in my opinion. When it comes to tempo runs, when you run at certain pace for longer, say half marathon or 10K pace, it's great. It's relatively easy to pick up the pace and then maintain it. This year I haven't had shoes that kept me at half marathon or marathon pace, which was so enjoyable. And definitely the highlight of the Superblast is the long runs with tempo sections. I did a 25K run, including about 6 km at close to half marathon pace. I did the 6K and then had another 12 easy kilometers to finish, and it went well. No significant problems, and most importantly, after completing the run, I didn't feel like my legs were ready to be thrown into the trash. I felt pretty lively. I could function normally for the rest of the day, which rarely happens after a long run. So I don't know if it's the shoes' merit. Probably not 100% the shoes, but they contributed to it somehow. It's also good news for me that these shoes, although not stabilizing, have a bit of stability. There's a bit more foam on this side, so the ankle doesn't collapse inward as much if someone has overpronation issues, which I do. It still collapses inward, but it's not as noticeable as in other shoes I've used for long runs. To quickly summarize whether it's worth being interested in the new Superblasts, in short, definitely yes, especially if you're training for a marathon. Finding a better all-around option will be very difficult in this case. Long runs, especially those with marathon-paced efforts, are pleasurable in these shoes. Easy runs are incredibly comfortable. Intervals and tempo runs offer a level of dynamism that, while not at the level of shoes dedicated to these types of workouts, is still very good. The Asics Superblast 2 developed the concept of the first version, and the changes make them even better shoes. Massive kudos to Asics, because it could have quickly gone wrong, but they took a risk, which paid off. Of course, they are still expensive shoes. $220 is a significant amount, but considering the range of uses and the high chance that this sole will last a long time, you could say that the price is somewhat justified. These shoes enchant me, and I think I already know what I'll run the Berlin Marathon in, even though, you know, the stack height is not quite legal for the road races. But you know, I'm not going for the Boston qualifier, I'm not going to win, so who cares? What about people training for shorter distances than a marathon? They should also be satisfied with these shoes, but it's on long runs that the Superblasts shine the most. When training for a half marathon or shorter, shoes like the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 could also be a good option and are a bit cheaper. Another good option could be the Asics Nova Blast 4. These shoes are a tier below the Superblasts, but should handle shorter distance training at a similar level. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.